Hi, welcome to the bathtub, where when you hear this sound effect, and there's no sound effect, and you see no whiteboard, and you hear Dodo, the natural splendors of a beautiful parakeet, then you know that you're in the new. What do we call this? This is the pre-digital version of the bathtub. We're getting rid of all the high tech. We sent the Pismo Beach prop department and all their CGI wondrousness. We sent them all back to Pismo Beach. We're doing everything just like your grandmother used to do YouTube. You know, we're filming this with a Commodore computer on a Betamax disc with eight tracks tape deck for background. We have a natural bird seeing the wonders of the natural world for us. No high tech gobbledygook at all, and that's it. So we're just going to talk a little bit about some books. So we talked about Harry Crews. We had lots of nice replies to everybody. This is an afternoon edition. We're doing this is also the pre-cocktail edition. Big glass of ice water and a big bird. We just finished cleaning the house. This is the worst day of the week for me, so I decided to do this talk. We were talking about Harry Crews and the term grit-lit, which I don't really like the term grit-lit, so I shouldn't be using it, but I keep using it. And a lot of people wrote in saying how the different writers they liked, including Harry Crews. And there was a lot of people who I didn't even think of associating with grit-lit. And again, I'm sorry I used it. It's sort of Southern Gothic. I mean, Southern Gothic is the term that I can live with. Most of us know and love Carson McCullers, one of the great bathtub reads. We'll take her to the bathtub soon. Someone mentioned one of my favorite writers when I was a kid was Davis Grub. Davis Grub or Davis Grubb. Most of you who have any sense of great movies know this wonderful movie. The Charles Laughton directed The Night of the Hunter. What you might not know, it was based on a great novel. You can't put it down, which I read before I saw the movie, by Davis Grubb. And he wrote a number of really kind of Southern Gothic thrillers. I read a bunch of them. Fool's Parade, I think one's called The Watchman. Anyway, he was a really wonderful writer, kind of Faulknerian style, but his greatest novel was The Night of the Hunter. Someone mentioned that. I did think that was a great idea to talk about. But the other writers that kind of come to mind, I mentioned Larry Brown, one of my favorites. We talked about the great Brad Watson. He's not Southern, but it's kind of that rural, kind of nightmarish rural world sometimes. The other writer we're going to talk about more, I think, next few weeks. Cormac McCarthy kind of is the most modern version of some of this kind of Southern Gothic nightmarish, kind of black humor. I forgot something here. Hold on. Remember, it's pre-digital. We don't have lots of fancy. I don't have my assistants aren't here to bring books to me. I have to go get them myself. This week, when I was reading Harry Crews, the writer I kept thinking about was the great Flannery O'Connor. I can't even say her name without wanting to start laughing. She's a hilarious writer, a beautiful stylist, great narrative writer. She reminds me, she is like Faulkner in the kind of control she has over narrative, but she's much funnier and easier to read. Many of my friends and fellow bathers find Faulkner a little unpleasant, but I kind of love Faulkner. Anyway, it got me to break out one of my first Library of America editions. I had to put the cover on so you can see what it is. The Flannery O'Connor volume came out many, many decades ago, back before I was born. Probably, I think I probably found this somewhere after I was born, and it's got this one has the complete short stories, but it also has her two very short novels. She died in her late 30s of lupus. Was just at the height of her powers. Her first novel was called Wise Blood, and I read that when I was a kid, and was just remembered as this hilarious nightmare. I read it after the Harry Crews books because Harry Crews reminds me a lot of Flannery O'Connor. The kind of take, he at one time she's actually in these characters' head, and she feels a sort of sad love for horrific character. I forget his name already. Hazel Motes. Hazel Motes, where to get the name? And Hazel Motes has just come out of the military. It's called Wise Blood. I urge you to go off and just pick it up and read it. It'll make you laugh for 2 days like it did me. And there's some beautiful narrative riffs in it. And basically, Hazel comes out of the war. His whole family comes back to find most of his family, I think, has died or disappeared. He's traveling around the South, and I think he ends up in Mississippi. I can't remember. And at one point, he goes into a town. He goes in these little rural, beat-up towns like Harry Crews novels. And he goes into one, he goes in the bathroom, and he sees a woman's name, like, want a good time, call Mary Ann Jenkins or something, and go see her, and here's her phone number. And he literally comes out of the bathroom and calls her. And he goes to her house. It's this big fat lady. And he just goes to bed with her. It's this kind of natural ridiculousness of this guy's life. And the way this woman treats him when he comes in is like, she treats him like this big baby. Anyway, he ends up renting a house, renting an apartment. There's just the pictures of these really poor neighborhoods. He goes into this apartment, and the landlady, I don't think it's the same woman. I can't remember. It may be another one. She takes him into some horrible dump. And then she takes him to the back door. And they're like two stores up. And the back door just leans right over into nothingness. There's like two stories below. There's just this beat up old yard. And she says, I think there used to be a fire escape there or something. It's one of these, it's like post-apocalyptic landscape that these characters go through. There's also, I remember seeing it when it came out. John Huston did a pretty funny movie with it, and I always forget that guy's actor's name, but the guy who in it is very good. I want to read a couple of passages. She has a way of taking you from one character to another. She shifts point of view when she needs to, when she gets into one character after another, and the way they see each other. Her main character is Hazel Motes, who decides to go off and be kind of a, not an evangelist. He's an anti-evangelist. He gives speeches about how Jesus is useless. He's not going to do anything for you. He keeps saying, you want to be redeemed? Jesus is not going to help you. I'll read you a couple of quick passages. He decides he's going to go outside movie theaters because people are coming and going. And he's preaching to the people coming in and out of the movie theaters. And while he's preaching, people are saying different things. So one of the women going into the movie theater says, he's a preacher. Let's go. Let's get away from him. Listen, you people. I'm going to take the truth with me wherever I go, Hayes called. I'm going to preach it to whoever will listen at whatever place. I'm going to preach there was no fall because there was nothing to fall from, and no redemption because there was no fall, and no judgment because there wasn't the first two. Nothing matters but that Jesus was a liar. The little man herded his girls into the picture show. He wants to get away from this crazy guy. Quickly, the three boys left, but more people came out, and he began over and again and said the same thing again. They left, and some more came, and he said it a third time. Then they left, and no one else came out. There was no one there but the woman in the glass box. She had been glaring at him all the time, but he had not noticed her. She wore glasses with rhinestones in the bows, and she had white hair stacked in sausages around her head. So you look at those weird characters. She stuck her mouth to a hole in the glass and shouted, listen, if you don't have a church to do it in, you don't have to do it in front of this show. My church is the church without Christ, lady, he said. If there's no Christ, there's no reason to have a set place to do it in. Listen, she said, if you don't get from in front of the show, I'll call the police. There's plenty of shows, he said, and got down and got back in the Essex and drove off. That night he preached in front of 3 other picture shows before he went to Mrs. Watts. Mrs. Watts is the one he's staying with. It's the way she can go through a scene like that. We have basically, it's almost a whole evening going through one comic moment after another. And then her saying, well, I'm going to call the police. He says, well, I don't care if you call the police. Of course, he splits as soon as she says it. He's got a car in Essex something. He buys it, and he pays $50 for it. And some guy cheats about it. And everywhere he goes, his car's breaking down. The car is like one of the greatest fictional characters in contemporary fiction. The car is constantly doing things. And every time he's talking to somebody, the car's rolling down hills, or he's trying to get it started. It's just, and then there's a scene with a policeman who pulls him over in this rat trap of a car. I think he calls it a rat-colored car. A rat-colored car keeps showing up. And as Hazel goes through this kind of nightmarish world, where he's actually speaking a bit of sense about all the ridiculousness of religion, as he's going through this whole kind of nightmarish world, other characters come and go. And there's one guy who thinks, this is a great idea. I should stand outside movie theaters. I should give speeches. And that guy starts going to regulars. It's a comedy of not errors, a comedy of bad intentions or good intentions poorly realized. She's a wonderful writer. Her short stories, if you haven't read it, her most famous story is one of the great short stories. I think we may have talked about it. A Good Man is Hard to Find. They're worlds of people where everybody are kind of brutal and stupid, and trying to live their lives. And she has sort of a sympathy and contempt for all of them. I loved Wise Blood. It's one of the best reads I've had in a long time. Anyway, we just wanted to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about. I've been kind of in a daisy chain. Harry Crews sent me to Flannery O'Connor, and Flannery O'Connor sent to me one of my old favorites when I was a teenager, and since then, William Faulkner. Many people have come to me and say they can't get through him, and I understand it. He can be really difficult, but it did send me straight to As I Lay Dying, which is, it's Southern Gothic comedy. His books are very funny, and we'll try to read that, and we may actually do some Cormac McCarthy soon too. I kind of got on a streak. Anyway, Flannery O'Connor. She was born for the bathtub. I can't give you more. I would read another passage, but I don't want to go on too long. This is just one passage after another that's hilarious. Just watch out for that Essex Fairlane car he has. It'll kill you. Okay, happy bathing. Stay safe. Don't get tied up in all this newfangled digital whatever. We're just, we're putting these images together with an Etch-a-Sketch, with those old Etch-a-Sketches. We don't need computers anymore, do we? Okay, take care.